For Eric J on Sports, I'm Eric J, and this is what I think. The Super Bowl has just ended, and the Rams defeated the Cincinnati Bengals. And the big story coming out of the Super Bowl is not the fact that the Rams won or that the Bengals lost. It's not even the fact that Cooper Kupp was named the MVP when a lot of people felt like it should have been defensive tackle Aaron Donald. The big story coming out of the Super Bowl was the fact that both Aaron Donald and Coach Sean McVay have indicated that they might retire after having won the Super Bowl. And Sean McVay is 36 years old. He's the youngest coach to whatever you can think of. He's the youngest coach to coach. He's the youngest coach to coach in the Super Bowl. He's the youngest coach to win the Super Bowl. He is the youngest coach in the league. And for him to be contemplating retirement is bizarre to some people simply because they feel that he could probably coach another 30 years like Bill Belichick. And on top of that, defensive tackle Aaron Donald is only 30 years old and he's only played 9 years in the league. And to be contemplating retirement to some people is extremely bizarre because they feel like he could probably play another 6 to 8 years if he continues to play at a high level, make a lot more money, and maybe win another Super Bowl or two. But Aaron Donald has done everything in the league that he feels like he needs to do. He's been a Pro Bowler, he's been All-Pro, he's been Defensive Player of the Year, and now he's a Super Bowl champion. And at one point in time, he was the highest paid defensive player in football. So the truth of the matter is, what else does he need to do? Well, people are going to say, well, why would you walk away from all of that money? And I'll explain that to you. When Jim Brown retired after playing 9 years, Jim Brown was the all-time leader in rushing yards and rushing touchdowns in the NFL. He retired after 9 years because he wanted to see if he could further his Hollywood career because he had done some movies and some acting parts. He thought he could take that another step further, so he retired because it was becoming a conflict for him to act and play football. So he elected to go and act full-time. And he could make more money acting. He knew that if he did it full-time. And he would incur less damage to his body if he did that full-time. So he decided to do it. But in the 60s, when Jim Brown played, most of the players in the NFL had second jobs that they did out of season. So a lot of the players, when the football season was over and the championships were determined, would go to their jobs at factories and at foundries and on construction sites or as security guards or whatever it was they did to make money during the off season because they weren't paid very much. So Jim Brown left football to become an actor because he knew he could work year round, make better money, and not be injured. Now, when Barry Sanders retired after 10 years, people thought he was crazy because he was less than 1,000 yards from becoming the all-time career-leading rusher in the NFL, and he was still playing at a very high level. And he had made what people thought was some decent money. But Barry Sanders was tired of losing. His stats were looking like empty calories because if you rush for 1,600 yards and your team only wins 3 games or 6 games, what were your 1,600 yards really worth? So his stats began to look like empty calories. So he decided he didn't want that anymore for his career, and since Detroit seemingly had no interest in bettering the franchise, he left. And some years later, Calvin Johnson did the same thing. Calvin Johnson was on the verge of becoming the greatest wide receiver to ever play the game, but he felt like the team wasn't trying to win. They were making money based on the fact that they existed, so they really never had to improve. So Calvin Johnson, instead of going someplace else because he was loyal to his franchise, he elected to leave football. Now, Calvin made more money than Barry, who made more money than Jim, so Calvin Johnson could leave and live comfortably on the money he made from football. But in the last few years, we've seen guys like Patrick Willis and Andrew Luck, keeping in mind, of course, Andrew Luck was injured when he retired, but he still retired around the age of 30. Patrick Willis and Andrew Luck and others all retire at the age of 30, plus or minus, after 8 or 9 years in the NFL. And people think that's strange. But what people don't understand is twofold. One, the world knows a lot more about concussions and what repeated brain damage and brain injuries can do to a person's life and livelihood So a lot of these guys don't want to continue doing damage to their brains. And a lot of these guys have made on average 10, 12, $15 million a year. So even factoring in income taxes and factoring in having to pay agents and managers and medical insurance and things of that nature, these guys are still sitting on in the neighborhood of $50 to $100 million after 9 years by the age of 30. So by the time these guys are 30 years old, you've got 50 million plus in the bank if you've been smart with it. And you could conceivably retire on $50 million and live the rest of your life extremely comfortably. So when people say, how could Patrick Willis, one of the highest paid defensive players in the game when he played, or Andrew Luck, one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league when he played, retire after only 9 years in football? Don't they care about football? Yes, they care about football, but they care about the quality of life. And the fact that they already have $50 million, why would you want to continue getting beat up? You wanted to play professional football, and you did. Now it's time to find something else to do. Now this brings me back to Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald's last contract paid him in excess of $20 million. So we're not talking about somebody who averaged $10 million a year for 9 years. We're talking about somebody whose average salary was probably closer to $20 million a year. So now, again, factoring in income taxes and managers and agents and everything else, Aaron Donald is probably sitting on a minimum of $100 million. And with endorsements and things of that nature, because he wasn't just a good player. He wasn't just a great player. He was one of the top 5 best defensive players in football the entire time he's been in the league. You look at names like J.J. Watt, T.J. Watt, Khalil Mack, and you've got Aaron Donald. He's right there above most of those guys. So if he's sitting on over $100 million and he's 30 years old, this is a guy who with his money will never have to work again if he's smart. He won't have to go to the NFL Network and be an analyst if he doesn't want to. He won't have to go to ESPN and be an analyst if he doesn't want to, or Fox or CBS. He won't have to go coach to make money if he doesn't want to. He can sit on his money, grab a few endorsements every now and again, grab a few acting roles every now and again just to keep busy, and spend the rest of his life attending his son's Pee Wee League games, attending his daughter's dance recitals or her soccer tournaments or her softball tournaments or her basketball tournaments or whatever his children get into, and spending time with his wife, going on vacations, and spending time with his family, watching his children grow up, knowing that he will never hurt for money again. So why wouldn't he want to retire? He's done everything he wanted to do in football. He was an all-pro. He made a lot of money. He won a championship. He's done it. You can't say that about Calvin Johnson or Andrew Luck or even Barry Sanders. But you can say that about Jim Brown and Aaron Donald. They did it all. So there's nothing left to do. So don't be surprised when a guy like Aaron Donald says he wants to retire. Because what else has he got to play for? Why continue to get beat up when you've already got more money than you can spend and you've accomplished everything that football has to offer? He probably won't retire. He may come back next year. And he's made it clear that there are a couple of things that will bring him back. One is re-signing Odell Beckham and the other is re-signing Von Miller. He said if those things are done by the Rams, then he'll be back. And that's his right. But either way, whatever he decides is his decision. And whatever he decides will be the right decision for him because he has that option. He can protect his body and his mind and spend his money, or he can come back and play another year and try to win another championship. But we as fans shouldn't be upset with him either way because there is really nothing left for him to accomplish in football. So he's now just playing for the love of the sport. And we should be happy for him there too. Remember to like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. And follow me on Facebook at Eric J on Sports 1 and on Instagram and Twitter at Eric J on Sports. And for Eric J on Sports, I'm Eric J, and this is what I think.